Let's talk about going to a funeral. Written by Mary Ann Johnston. What is a funeral? Everyone will die at some time. Like animals and plants, people usually die when they are old. Most people live for a long time. When someone dies, it may be a sad, confusing, and scary time for that person's family and friends. A funeral is a special ceremony that makes the death easier for family and friends to accept. All living things die at some time. Why have a funeral? A funeral is a time for all the people who love the person who died to share their sadness with each other. It is important to let that sadness out instead of keeping it inside. A funeral is also a time to honor the person who died. People can take time to remember that person's life. Funerals help people learn to accept that someone they love is gone from their lives. What happens at a funeral? Funerals are usually held in a religious place, such as a church or temple. Sometimes they are held at a place called a funeral home. People going to a funeral usually wear formal, dark-colored clothes to show respect for the person who died. Once everyone is seated, the minister or rabbi begins to speak. He or she may say a prayer and talk about the person who died. You may hear music. After the prayers and songs, a eulogy is given. This is when a family member or friend talks about the life of the person who died. Funerals are a sad time for everyone. When you first get there. At a funeral, you may notice a big box made of wood or metal. This is called a coffin. The body of the person who died is kept in the coffin. At some funerals, the coffin is open. This is so family and friends can see the person who died one more time. Many people gently touch or kiss the body. You can do that if you want to, but you don't have to. The person who died will look different from the last time you saw him or her. It will look sort of like the person is asleep. Some coffins are made of wood, others are made of metal. Grieving. People often cry at funerals. Don't be scared if you see your mom or dad or other grown-ups cry. Crying is a part of grieving. Grieving means accepting that a special person has died and is gone from your life. Grieving helps your body and mind sort through the sad, confusing feelings that happen when someone dies. At a funeral, you grieve with others. Sharing your pain helps it go away faster than keeping it to yourself. Many people cry at funerals. Crying helps them feel better. The funeral procession. When the service is over, pallbearers carry the coffin out of the church or temple. The pallbearers are usually family members or close friends of the person who died. They place the coffin in a long black car called a hearse. Everyone at the funeral gets into their own cars and follows the hearse to the cemetery. This is called the funeral procession. Sometimes a police officer rides next to the line of cars to make sure everyone gets to the cemetery okay. The hearse is a special car that carries coffins to cemeteries. The cemetery. A cemetery is a big grassy place where people who have died are buried. You will probably see many gravestones. These mark the places where people who have died are buried. Usually the names of the people and the dates that they died are carved on the gravestones. Some gravestones are very fancy. Others are plain and simple. Cemeteries are usually quiet, peaceful places. At the grave. A grave is a place where a person who has died is buried. It is a hole about 6 feet deep. Once everyone arrives at the grave, the pallbearers carry the coffin to the grave. The minister or rabbi says a few more words. Sometimes people put roses or other flowers on the coffin. Everyone gathers around the grave while the coffin is lowered into the hole. When everyone is gone, the hole is filled again. Many people visit the grave of someone they love on birthdays or holidays. Cremation. Not all people who die are buried. Some people choose to be cremated. This is when the body is burned in a special place called a crematorium. After the body is cremated, there are ashes. The ashes are usually placed in a small container called an urn. Some families keep the urn in their homes. Others bury it in a cemetery. Still others spread the ashes of the person who died in a special place, such as the ocean or in a garden. Some urns are fancy like this one. Others are very simple. After the funeral. Some families don't want to be alone after a funeral. People usually gather together at someone's house after a funeral. There is often lots of food at the gathering. Some people cry, some talk, and some even laugh. Some people tell stories about the person who died. Others sit quietly thinking about that person. These are all normal reactions to the death of someone you love. Everyone is trying to learn to live without that person. Talking about that person makes accepting his or her death a little easier.